Delicious Podcast. The Brutally Delicious Podcast. So, how are you today, Tom?
I'm very good. I got the first copy of the Sodom box set in my hand.
Oh my God, that is so sick.
Yeah, it's a very, very big one.
Mm-hmm.
And that's always especially after all the hard work. And you hold the finished product in your own hands. It's great.
Good to hear. Good to hear. How is the new album going?
I think the reviews so far are very good.
Okay.
And it's going to be released in Germany I think in 4 weeks. But all the magazines, they got the whole album, and we released already 3 singles. The first one was Trigger Discipline, the second one Witch Hunter, and today we released the third single, the lyric video Tapiphobia.
Good to hear. Good to hear. Let's go ahead and get a bumper really quickly. Kind of a, hey, I'm Tom from Sodom, and you're listening to the Brutally Delicious Podcast. Let's go ahead and get that out of the way, if you don't mind.
What is called? I'm Tom from Sodom, yeah. You're listening to?
The Brutally Delicious Podcast.
Brutally Delicious Podcast. Okay.
Yes, the podcast originally started as a cooking podcast, if I remember what Bruce told me when I first hopped on this project. But somehow it just evolved into just a straight up heavy metal podcast. It's crazy how things can happen. But take it away.
All right. This is Tom from Sodom, and you are listening to Brutally Delicious. Delicious, genau. Hi, this is Tom from Sodom, and you are listening to Brutally Delicious Podcast. Enjoy.
Yes, thank you. All right, I will let Grant have the first question.
I mean, you mentioned that the Arsonist is coming out on June 27th, Tom. Yeah. So I want to know a little bit more about what's going on with the Arsonist. Is there any changes in style or sound, or I don't know? What are you bringing this time?
I think there are. Sodom is a band who never really changed, But in this case, this album. We have a new songwriter. Our drummer, Tony, is also a guitarist in different bands and also a good songwriter. And he came up with a lot of ideas for new songs. And I think on the new album, he wrote 4 or 5 songs near Frank Blackfire. Frank Blackfire has more the old school, thrashy Agent Orange style, And York is coming from a new wave of British heavy metal scene, more epic bands, So we put everything together. So that makes album, I think, more colorful, but in the end, we just keep the Sodom trademarks in every song. That is very important to me, which is my vocals and my lyrics and everything. Yes, but there was no big change to Decision Day. Also, the way we recorded the drum on a tape machine, that is a big difference to all the other albums before, because a friend of Tony, he's running a studio, and we visit him, and I saw the tape machine and asked him, do we still recording bands with a tape machine from the 70s, And he said, yes, it's no problem. We can record it the drums if you want, So when we recorded the drums, we need more than 20 microphones, And so we recorded the complete drum kit on a tape machine. That was a very big experience because Tony never recorded on tape, And the problem is, if you're a drummer recording on tape, you just get one chance. If you have any mistake in the end or issues, you have to restart from the beginning, That was really funny. But Tony is a good drummer. He played the most songs in just one take, And that makes a difference to the previous album, The sound is more organic, in my opinion. It's more authentic. It's more, so we also don't use any snare samples or special effects for the drums or any plugins, Because sometimes you listen to metal bands, the drum sounds like plastic, And I want to have a bigger production, like if from like the 80s, where the band's recording on tape with wide open productions. The problem is that that the most people listen to music on a smartphone, you know. So we had to compress the whole file for Spotify and for smartphone mixing and all. That is a shame, but it's the way it is nowadays, you know. But if you get the vinyl version of this album, it's more wide open, you know. It's more, you can listen more details on the album. You know? But the music never changed really.
You know, you mentioned how the music hasn't really changed. How would you say your sound has evolved or has changed since some of the early days?
When I'm really looking back to the 80s, you know, when we recorded our first EP or first album, you know, that was a big difference because nobody told us to tune the guitars before recording. That is something what we go on nowadays when we record songs, you know, because we were drunk all the time, you know. I think the band getting more serious over the years, you know, and more. We practice more before we start recording. We also rehearse 2 or 3 times a week, you know, in a rehearsal room, which is really old school, you know. That's where you got, when the guitar, we came up with a guitar riff, you know, and some ideas, you know, we always met in a rehearsal room, putting everything together to get a song in the end, you know. And I am somebody who has arranged the songs because I'm the singer in the band. I have to put my lyrics on it, you know. That is a very old school way, but it's the only way for us to write songs, you know. But when we're recording in the studio, we are not drunk, you know. We stay sober and we very clean, you know, because it's a really hard work recording an album, you know, in the studio where you're gonna want to pay the price, you know. You have to pay every day recording, you know. So we spend the time for recording permanently, you know.
You know, it's funny how you mention being drunk in the studio. If you could bring any brand of beer or any kind of alcohol that the listeners might not know about, if you could bring any obscure drink around the world with you, what would it be?
I think a good German beer. You know, my favorite German beer is special brew called Diebels Alt. You don't know, you don't get it in US America too. This one what I really enjoy, you know. And when we play US America or South America, we always miss the German beer, you know. But that is not especially because I'm somebody who don't drink so much nowadays, you know. I stopped drinking. I turn it down a little bit, you know. But I get my Jack Daniels all over the world, you know. That is not a problem. No.
Can I go with one here, Ray? So Tom, you mentioned structure in the songs in relation to your lyrics before. We've talked a lot about the music that's going into the new album and how it hasn't really changed. You've always had a very strong anti-war rhetoric. I'm in Europe as well. I'm British. With everything that's going on in Europe, have you found that your lyrical themes have changed more towards current affairs, or are we still writing historically?
You know, when I look at TV news or read newspapers every day, you know, I know what's going on in this world, you know, but I don't want to write lyrics about it, you know. I don't want to write about the big war or the big politics behind the war, you know. Some people ask me, who is the Arsonist on the cover? Is it President Putin or is it President Trump? Whatever, you know, it's not a special person, you know. The most songs are about the soldier who is fighting in a war. It's a song like Tapophobia, for example. It's a soldier who's fighting in the front line, fighting in a trench, especially in World War One. You know, when grenades exploding next to him, he's scared to get buried alive by all the shit coming down. You know, and that is something I'm really interested in. You know, I don't want to tell the people who's the good or the bad guy in any wars. You know, I don't want to tell them. I don't want to leave any political message in my lyrics. I just describe how bad it is, you know. And the message is really simple. But if you look to the cover, you see the very peaceful situation with a soldier on knees, you know. And this is what we call Knarrenheinz, you know, our band mascot. You know, he gonna set the world on fire. He's the Arsonist, you know. And in the end, he destroyed everything, you know. You know, I don't want to bring any politics in it. I just I just want to tell the people, stop it. You know, we want to live in a peaceful world. I'm so scared about what is going on. You know, especially if you live in Europe or in Germany. You know, but I'm not scared about myself. I'm scared about the next generation growing up, my kiddies and everything. You know, that is a shame. You know, I want to get stop it. And I hope I got a lot of interviews with Russian metal magazines today. You know, I want to go back to Russia because we played in Russia all the time, every year. You know, I want to live in a peaceful world where we can, where musicians are able to play everywhere. You know, that is my dream. But I can't change anything. But I can scream it out when I go up on stage, or I can scream it out when I sing my lyrics in the studio. You know, but it's not the big war I try to describe. You know, it's just the small things that happened in a war. You know.
I love that, dude. Thank you. That's peace for all is exactly how it should be.
Yes, and I said, you know, it's not President Trump or whatever, you know. I don't want to tell any names, you know, about politics, you know. Just stop it. Just try to find a diplomatic way to get out, you know. That's it's my opinion, you know. But I cannot change anything. I can just scream it out, you know. I can just write it down, put my lyrics on a song, you know, and go, you know.
You know, when you're writing these really impactful and very brutal lyrics, what kind of strategies do you employ to get yourself into that headspace in writing specifically?
I don't have any plan. When I, you know, sometimes I'm gonna wake up in the night, I get some ideas for writing lyrics, you know. And I write it down in German, you know, first. So I don't want to forget it when I wake up in the morning, you know, other morning, you know. And I have on it's also no time period when I start writing lyrics or writing songs, and I always have ideas for writing something. I still have ideas for the next album, you know. And I'm always looking for song titles nobody used before, you know, which is really hard to find. When you Google something, another band, you're gonna use it before, you know. Um, so there is no special tragedy how to write a song, you know. It's also when you're writing the music, you know, the guitarist always came up with new guitarists, and we still collected, you know, for the next one, you know. And I remember when we recorded Genesis 19, you know, we wrote the songs. There was a Corona pandemic, so we had a lot of time writing songs because we were not able to tour. You know, it was forbidden for bands. All the tours and shows were cancelled. You know, so we find it's very strong time for writing songs. You know, and after Genesis 19 came out, you know, we always start writing something. You know, and we collect everything. You know, and then we get an option from a record company so you can release an album next year. So you can start writing songs, you can start recording songs, you know. I remember back in the 80s, we released an album every year, you know. But now the time flies so fast, you know. If you are, and the last year I was so busy, it was touring and playing everywhere, you know.
Grant, do you have any more?
But I'm trying to think of one at the moment. To be honest, I was going to ask about the production on the new album and what Tom said before about all of the old school production and the tape production. He kind of already covered it. I guess in relation to that old school production, Tom, like, is there almost a message behind it, kind of rebelling back against digital music?
Sorry, can you repeat it?
The way that you've recorded the new album, you said
Yeah.
there's a lot of analog, a lot of mics. Was there a conscious effort to do that in response to a very digitized music industry?
Yes. And, you know, I have to tell you, when you record it on tape in a studio, an analog desk also, you know, it's very expensive, you know. But I want to spend the money. I paid the price, you know, because I love old school metal bands with a big drums production, you know, which I really enjoy, you know. I want to have some it sounded like it really sounds, you know. The drum kit like it sounds in a rehearsal room, the drum kit it sounds on a live show, whatever, you know. I know that a lot of people use any samples and plugins for the drums, especially, you know, and also the guitars recorded by what we call profiling amplifying system, the Kemper, for example. You know, I don't want to use it. We use Marshalls and Engel and putting the microphones in front of the cabinets, the speakers. You know, So I think there is a special magic between the speaker and the microphone, you know. I can tell you, but I'm deaf anyway. But my producer told me if you're recording analog with microphones and also the guitar, it sounds better. You know, um, I know it's nowadays every band recording digital because it's very cheap to do. You know, if you have a good computer, you have some interface, you know, some microphones, you can record a whole album in a rehearsal room or at home. You know, but for me, it was very special when the band is sitting in the studio and when we mixed the album, you know, the band is sitting there drinking a beer, smoking a cigarette, you know, that was like sitting in a time machine, going back to the 80s, 90s, where we recorded on tape in the studio, you know. And then something I want to get back the feeling, you know, recording an album, you know. I know that other bands, you know, they're recording an album in different countries, you know. Maybe the guitarist living in England, the drummer coming from America, and the recording with a computer, you know. That is not the way we're gonna do it, you know. So I think when we tell the people we are old school, you know, and recording on tape, this is something they really enjoy, I think, you know. And the people say the drum sound is fantastic. It's not modern, but it's a sound like the drum sound, you know. I don't know what I'm gonna do the next production of, if I'm gonna do an analog or digital. You know, in the end, everything is getting digital. If you're recording on tape, it's getting it's getting it's getting to the computer and it's getting mixed in the computer in the end, you know. Especially when you compress a file to get it on a smartphone, you know, that is a shame, but it's the way it is nowadays. You know?
What are your feelings on that market? You mentioned about everybody playing through smartphones. You know, music's more accessible, but also saturated at the moment. You know, what do you think of streaming services? And
Hate it. You know, I personally, I want to consume, I want to enjoy music, you know. And I have my stereo, my hi-fi equipment here, you know, with my good speakers, you know, and I want to enjoy listening to music, you know. I like listen on vinyl, when I get the lyrics out, I look into the photos, you know, like in the 80s, you know. I'm somebody who always stayed in the 80s, you know, and I hate it with Spotify, you know. It is the way it is nowadays, you know. The record company put it on Spotify and other platforms, on Amazon, whatever, you know. And yes, that's. But I try to do it so analog as possible. You know, when I start recording the songs on tape, you know, it's very hard to explain, you know, but I don't like it. You know, I want to enjoy it. I need more time for listening music, and I want to enjoy it. You know, all the remembrance coming back when I listen to my old school stuff. Yeah. Yesterday I listened to Judas Priest "Screaming for Vengeance," which is one of my favorite albums. You know. And everything coming back, you know, that's what I really like when I listen to music.
You know, it's funny how you mention the return to vinyl, especially that a lot of it's weird. Younger people often are starting to have the same sentiment where vinyl stores are getting way more populous and having many more sales. Like, there's nothing cooler than finding a great like Mayhem live album sitting in the stacks and being like, oh my god, this is only $5, I gotta get it. But I say all that to say, if you could go, if you were trapped on a desert island and you could only bring your vinyl equipment, your all of that, and you could only bring 3 albums, what would they be?
Oh, just 3? Oh my god!
Just 3.
I think my favorite album was Venom: Welcome to Earth. You know, this album. With this album, everything started. You know, that was in these times when I got this in '81. You know, there's completely something new. And without this album, I wouldn't be here. You know, this album changed my life. That changed the metal scene completely. You know, this is something I want to bring to the island. You know, the next one, I don't know. It changed a little bit. You know, it would change. You know, last week I listened to Explore the Troops of Tomorrow, which is from the punk band from England. You know, it's from '82, which is my favorite punk album. You know, I'm also a big punk fan. You know, And the third one could be Exciter, Heavy Metal Maniac. A Canadian band, yeah. But what you told before, the vinyl is coming back, people are gonna want to get the vinyl, and this box set is sold out, and we make 5 songs for it, It's sold out very soon. And there is also a big collector scene. We re-released the Tapping the Vein the last month, which because the Tapping the Vein was an album never re-released by the record company, by the first official record company. And if you're gonna buy the first press, you're gonna pay 600 euros for it, It's amazing, If you want to get all the, especially the first press, you pay a lot of money. So, but I think the vinyl scene, it's also the collector scene, You get the vinyl in 5 or 6 different colors, which is stupid in my opinion, But it seems there is a collector scene who's going to buy all of them, And that's a record company politic, they want to make money. We all want to make money, But the collector scene going to buy everything, Especially when you got the box set, I can show you there is also tape in it,
Yeah, let's see it, man.
Tape is coming back,
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's weird how tape is coming back, because you have like these gore grind projects who they don't even put anything online, they don't put anything on Spotify, nothing like that. The only way to listen is a tape. And it goes back to the 80s, and that I will always respect.
Yeah, that we have tape in it, also the CD in it, we got it in different configurations. We also have a live EP in it, and I can show you this one is it's really amazing. There is so much stuff in it. Yeah, there is stickers in it and photos and all this stuff, And there's a live recording, which is a shape, like a saw,
That is metal as hell.
I know the people, they're gonna like it. This is something really special, So yes, that's the way it is, So the record company want to make money. I want to make money. I want to make money from the music, still, So when we just release on tape, we don't buy it, we don't sell enough,
Should I round it off?
Absolutely.
Tom, we mentioned Desert Island Discs before, the 3 albums that you would take if you were trapped on an island. You've got a career now spanning 43 years? 81 you formed? I think that's the same age I was born.
Yeah.
Is there anybody out there that you haven't played with yet? Anybody that you'd like to share a bill with that you've yet to be on the same bill with?
No, I think we played with every band, We toured I remember we toured with Motorhead in the 90s. That was really funny, And no, there is no special band, We played with Slayer, which is one of my favorite bands, And we also play all the festivals, and you're gonna see all the bands, and see also my favorite bands, Last year I saw on a festival, I saw Exploited, which is one of my favorite bands, And I have a great relationship to Vati, and drink a lot of beers together. In the backstage, it's like a family, Nobody's a rock star, In this space, when the band's coming up from the stage, going to the backstage area, it's like a big family, There is nobody I'm gonna miss, There was one song on this new album. It's about LG Ward, which is Tank is one of my favorite bands, And he died 2 years ago, And I'd start writing a song about LG Ward, And he was my hero in the beginning, because he was completely different to Motorhead, to Lemmy's bass style and vocal style, and also Kronos, I think LG Ward, he was one of my favorite musicians all time, But I met him a couple of times in the 80s, but he died too early. And then I came up with the idea of writing a song about LG Ward. It's also a song about my drummer, Witch Hunter, on this album, But I don't want to set him as a big hero, I think Witch Hunter and also Angelripper, they had a big impact to the metal scene, to the drummer scene, the bassist scene, you know. But their life went so tragic in the end, you know, it's horrible because of the alcohol abuse and drug abuse and all this stuff. I lost a lot of friends because of that shit, you know. And that is also something I'm going to write lyrics about, you know.
Cool. I've got nothing else, right?
To kind of end it on a little bit of a lighter note, if you were trapped on a desert island with your band and you had to eat one of them, one of the band members, which one would it be and why?
Just one band member? I can't tell you. I love them all, you know. That's
Good answer. Good answer.
maybe Tony. Tony is also smoking. So if I miss cigarettes or I get cigarettes, I don't know. I can tell you. You know, I love them all. You know.
All right. That is all I have. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for the fantastic music, and I can't wait to listen to the new album.
Yes, I think it's going to be released in the US, America on July or something like this, or end of July. Thank you for your support, and yes, take care. All right. Bye bye.
It is.